Hey friends, thank you for joining us today. I am, as many of you know, a Vietnam veteran. I was in the medical corps in Vietnam in 1970 and 71. I read a newspaper article a short time ago that Vietnam veterans are committing suicide at an astronomical rate. That makes me really, really sad that it has come to that for so many of us. Folks, but wouldn't it be great if there were a blood test and we could say, hey, your rate of risk of suicide is very high, let's put you on some medication. Well, Johns Hopkins researchers are doing just that. They've discovered a chemical alteration in a single human gene that, if confirmed, could give doctors a new blood test that reliably predicts a person's risk of suicide. Okay, that's the operative part of this. A mutation in a simple or a single human gene. What causes these mutations? Poison will do it. We don't sit down to a glass of strychnine, but we do sit down to a glass of alcohol. And friends, I gotta tell you, brewer's yeast is the mold, the mycotoxin, or the poison it makes, is called alcohol. Penicillium is the mold, the poison it makes is called penicillin. Now, let me just take a stand for both of those. Sometimes a glass of beer is absolutely fine, and sometimes a penicillin can be life-saving. Here's the take-home message. Fungus breaches the cell wall and the nucleus wall and can alter DNA. Do you see where I'm going with this? Could these people have gotten into a lot of mold or a lot of medications with mold, and that's what's prompting the suicide? Just the way I think. I may be totally wrong, but welcome to Know the Cause. You know, some of you are longtime listeners and therefore kind of know my background, my story. At 20 years old, I'm off to Vietnam. I was a Navy corpsman attached with the 7th Marine Corps, and what a fascinating year that was. But I came home at 21 years old sick, and all the king's horses and all the king's men and all the king's drugs couldn't put me back together again. Oh, I tried antibiotics and I tried cortisone and so forth, and that didn't help. And I thought a parasite had gotten inside my body. Folks, that's what I want to talk with you about right now, because I think it's important, if you've watched me for 15 years or 5 days, if we graphically explain what happens here once this fungus gets in your body. Fungus makes a poison called a mycotoxin, and here's what I want to show you. Here's the 20-year-old Doug Kaufman's stomach and intestine. Remember, this is before fungus. It's filled with good bacteria, which we now know is our immune system. 70–80% of this intestinal bacteria makes up your immune system. There are several ways mold can affect you. We could have had this man inhaling mold through his respiratory tract, but here you go. Here comes the alcohol, which is a mycotoxin, a fungal poison, or the antibiotic, or the grains impregnated with these molds. In they go, and notice what happens. It diminishes the good bacteria layer. With that layer of good bacteria now gone, number one, it diminishes your immune system. Number two, some germ is going to grow in there. And here it comes. Here are the yeasts. And they grow and grow and grow. As this continues and you crave pastas and so forth and breads and alcohol and sugars, the good guys, your immune system, are eventually outnumbered by the bad guys. These are called pathogenic yeast growing in the intestine, and soon misery begins. Okay, so understand, unless you have a double PhD in physiology and mycology, this is a very crude explanation, but I want you to know this takes place inside the human body. And if doctors learn this in medical school, it might be a whole new world scientifically. Yes, mold, mildew, and fungus can get into the intestines, and then, as I said earlier, all heck breaks loose inside the intestine. I'll give you my example. I'm 21 years old. Bloating, and all of a sudden your 28-inch waist becomes 30, then 32, then 34, then 36. Bloating, why? Bloating, belching, gas, constipation, and or diarrhea, GERD. You know, you're always talking like that. You can't lay down in bed. And it doesn't, look, if you drank an alcoholic drink and that happened, you'd say, okay, no more alcohol. Or if you swallowed an antibiotic and that evening all that happened, this is a slow, methodical process that takes place in the human body. What a medical textbook that I have that's very, very technical talks about invaginations in the lumen, the lining of the intestine, and the yeast poke holes through the intestine. So in goes the milk, in goes the corn, in goes the wheat, we chew it up and it leaks, thereby making us allergic to certain foods. I believe that's how food allergy actually occurs. But it's these yeasts, I believe, poking a hole through the intestine or other chemicals or other things in our diet that can cause the permeability of the gut to change. Normally our nutrients get through that intestine that you saw, not yeast, not foods that we're chewing up and becoming allergic to. So here I was at 21, 22 years old, just feeling miserably. Now you guys will run to a gastroenterologist. You've read my newsletters, many people do that. And they will put you on acid blockers because you've got GERD, or on one pill or another, without regard to the cause. You've got to know the cause. A good history must be taken, folks. It's that important. Any gastroenterologist should sit down and say, how long has this been going on? It's interesting. 3 years ago, you put me on antibiotics and it's been miserable since. Now, gastroenterologists would never say my antibiotics could have caused damage. But now you're beginning to see that, in fact, good drugs meant to kill little tiny germs in little tiny doses, in larger doses can kill bigger organisms. But before they do, they make them miserable. So that begs a question that we're going to talk about after we sit down with Frank and talk about, oh, this was the most amazing conversation about the common flu shot, right? I'm not making a decision one way or other, but when you hear what Frank has to say, I think you may. But then I'm going to come back and talk 4 or 5 minutes about what ensues, right? What happens once this misery is taking place in the gut? Does it stay in the gut? Can it mimic serious symptoms and diseases? And why don't your doctors know this? So don't go away. A whole lot more on today's Know the Cause. Let the learning continue.
In 1993, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Growing up, I didn't really take care of myself. And then when I started to want to have children, people would come up and say, are you even going to be able to have children? And that would really discourage me. And in about 2005, I was watching Doug Kaufman and everything just started to change. The sugar got under control and everything just started to come alive for me. I felt better, and in 2007 I had my first daughter, and in 2008 a second daughter, and 2012 our third. So we've been blessed. Follow Doug's phase 1 diet as closely as possible. Olive leaf extract, the oregano oil, caprylic acid was one of the first I ever took. Prayer, of course. It can be done. You need to revamp your body to prepare itself for pregnancy, and that'll make it easier.
You know, I have a whole bunch of old medical textbooks, and they called fungus way back in the 40s and 50s the great pretender, because a fungal infection could mimic all other symptoms and diseases, and it still does to this day. The important thing to note here is that doctors in medical training don't learn about fungus. Oh, we learn about vaginal yeast infections, they learn about ringworm being a fungus and jock itch and so forth. But they don't learn that if this is going on, the demonstration you saw today is going on commonly inside our body following antibiotics or other medications, birth control pills, etc., that a whole lot of symptoms might be overlooked as being due to something else and not fungus and their poisonous byproducts called mycotoxins. So how do we know if we have a fungal condition? How do we know if blepharospasms, twitching of the eye, or a rapid heartbeat, or arthritis in the morning, how do we know if that's linked? We'd go to our doctor and say, look, I think my problems are fungus, doc. You've had me on these pills 8 years. My blood pressure is still high. My heart ticker is still going out of control. Unfortunately, folks, this is a gray area. There is not a blood test. It would have to be a DNA test. There isn't a blood test to say, aha, aspergillosis. You have aspergillosis. You got infected with aspergillus fungus and you have a disease called aspergillosis. Note this, in 2013, 27 people diagnosed with lung cancer, this is in the scientific literature, were erroneously diagnosed, wrong diagnosis. They put these 27 on antifungals, and how many of them do you think got over their cancer, lung cancer? 27 of them, all of them. So one thing you'll note is how fungi, once on board, live symbiotically with the other cells in your body. They love the warmth, they love the food you're giving them, and we need to expound on that a bit. All of a sudden, the person with a fungal disease in their bloodstream, their gut, their heart, their liver, their colon, etc., begins cravings that they don't understand. I've never eaten this much bread. I walk into my favorite restaurant, the smell of bread just has me wanting to shoot it in an IV. That's how much I miss it. I want pasta, right? I want carbohydrates, I want sugar, and I can't get enough of it. And I know it's putting a little weight on me, but did you know that maybe your depression, maybe the skin breaking out, has to do with this fungus proliferating through your body? Aspergillus is just one of them. This can create aspergilloma balls that mimic on an X-ray lung cancer perfectly, as this article defined. But there are so many ways. It's the great mystery of fungus. You got a bacterial infection, go to the doctor. Antibiotics knock it out. But too many antibiotics might knock out the bacterial infection and provoke illness. Doctors currently are saying we are becoming antibiotic resistant. Why? Because our milk supply and our meat supply and our chicken supply, our food supply is impregnated secondarily with all of these pills that were hormones that we're giving cows and so forth. So we really have to understand to think outside of the box, because doctors you're going to go to, and a lot of my friends are doctors, you know that, are going to first put you on antibiotic, like what happened to me when I got home from Vietnam. Doug seems down, he's miserable, he's sore, let's put him on an antibiotic. Little did they know that may have fueled a fungal condition. If you treat a fungal infection with an antibiotic, the one thing we're sure of, it's going to maintain the chronicity or begin a chronic program, because antibiotics, mold, fuel the yeast inside your body. Oh, it'll kill bacteria, but it'll accelerate the yeast. Now, on my website, I put together a nice little free download for diseases that your doctors don't know may be linked to fungus. I think it'll help a lot of you. Go to the website after today's show and don't go away, more to come.
I had out and I went on the phase 1 diet. After going on the phase 1 diet, it went away, and I still kind of can listen to Doug, but of course I went off the phase 1 diet. Last year at this time in May, I had 3 strokes and was strapped to a bed, at which time they told me I also had diabetes. They put me on all sorts of pills, but said nothing about what I should do in order to try and help myself to get rid of it. Once I got home, I pulled out Doug's old books, and one was The Fungus Link and Infectious Diabetes, and I read it, and since then I'm basically off all medications, don't have any more diabetes, and because of Doug's information, I'm basically 100%, and at this time I will not go off the phase 1 diet. So that's basically my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You know, you're watching the wrong show to tell you not to take a flu shot, but we can certainly give you statistics. For example, Frank Jordan joins me. Man, this guy knows the immune system. Thank you, Frank, for coming in. 2012, 2013, the flu vaccine was about 9% effective for the 65 and over gang, we seniors. Certainly it's better 2014, 2015, Frank.
No.
In a word?
No, it isn't. They've made a mistake. When you formulate the flu vaccine, they take 3 to 4 different strains and try to pick the ones that will be predominant and most virulent, put those into a flu shot, you take it, and hopefully it makes antibodies to prevent the flu that season. They missed it. it mutated, and that's their greatest fear. The H3N2, there actually is an H3N2 strain in it, but they have changed that to where it's only, it's a more virulent form. The most virulent, that 3 out of the worst flu seasons we've had in the last 10 years were all this H3N2.
Okay.
There's been 5 children die, 4 of them from this mutated strain, and it doesn't work.
So the children didn't die from a flu shot, they died from that flu. Maybe they had gotten the flu shot, but it didn't protect them. Is that what is going on now? It's the wrong strain. So why do I watch television and it says, all these people are getting their flu shot? Do we still take it? Is there a chip of that strain that is correct? Because the mantra now on television is, I'd rather be partially protected than not protected at all.
Well, you can believe that if you want. I don't. Let me read from the CDC director, because this is direct from Tom Frieden, Dr. Frieden. Quote, "We know that in seasons when H3 viruses predominate, we tend to have seasons that are worse flu seasons with more hospitalizations from flu and more deaths from influenza." Now listen to this part. I'm still quoting Dr. Frieden from the CDC. "The rate of hospitalization and death can be twice as high or more. U.S. flu deaths were about 24,000 in 2013. So we're looking at around 50,000 deaths estimated by the CDC. And I would say they're rather, I hope it's not that bad.
Now, they can't equate. In other words, a lot of people take the flu shot, and some of those will die because they're not protected, is what they're saying. Frank, are these the weak, the immunocompromised, the patients on chemotherapy, AIDS patients whose immune systems are down? Are they the ones being hurt most by the flu?
They are the most susceptible. And you and I, me more than you as a senior citizen, certainly, and I have respiratory illness like asthma that thanks to the glucan I don't have anymore, but that's the ones most susceptible, because it can go into incremental diseases that are bacterial, not just viruses.
Have you seen the nasal sprays they're recommending maybe children take?
Those have, read on it, attenuated viruses. That means live but dormant. It's not dead. They are live. Now that's the sprays. The others they claim are dead because they're
shots.
They're shots.
Yeah.
But why are the immune cells taking that back and making antibodies? They certainly think it has a live portion. So I've heard that, and I can't dispute it. I don't have a laboratory of that caliber, but I know an awful lot of people and a lot of people just don't get affected by the flu vaccine. I'm not saying don't take it like you said, but my grandchildren aren't taking it this year.
Okay, now, I get a flu shot, I get the flu. You guys know that. I have heard that thousands of times from people, and yet the Center for Disease Control says that's not actually accurate because it's a dead virus. But you're saying this attenuated nasal spray is a live virus. There are adjuvants added to these. It's a virus, but then it's got preservatives and so forth. Are they still the same adjuvants or preservatives that they've always been? No.
Well, I think they are the same. Unfortunately, it's thimerosal derived from mercury that's 25 parts per million, much higher than what's allowed in water. And you also have aluminum hydroxide. That's what that little circle on your arm.
Oh, yeah.
The reason is they want to put metal in there to draw the immune cells in case the viruses aren't strong enough to get them there.
Okay.
And that gets the crowd. It's like a loudspeaker for the crowd. They come in, they take those heavy metals, and they're toxic. They take them and make the antibodies. But what do you do? Now they're saying, well, take these antivirals. They only shorten the duration of the flu about a day. Skip that.
Yep.
Wash your hands, amp up your immune response. Don't cough. Stay home if you're sick. Do all of these things. Supplement with zinc.
Yeah, the zinc and your NSC respiratory formula. I mean, a lot of people are using that. Now, Frank and I went on 11 minutes behind the scenes. Go to Know the Cause and watch what we said about this year's flu virus.
Hi, I'm Susie Cohen, America's Pharmacist. Don't you think we as women deserve to know exactly what's going into our bodies? Unfortunately, the makers of tampons and sanitary pads don't think so. They don't have to fully disclose the ingredients because personal hygiene items are categorized as medical devices. Yeah, really. I was stunned when I learned that the most popular tampons and pads are bleached using chlorine dioxide. And while the process is technically chlorine-free, it does produce dioxin as a byproduct. And that's not it. Conventional tampons often contain pesticides. We're all so afraid of eating pesticides in our food, yet we expose our most delicate parts to this stuff, and we take up the toxins through the blood vessels from our nether regions. Basically, what I'm saying is that some tampons and sanitary napkins are chemical soup of artificial colors, fragrances, polyester, adhesives, polyethylene, propylene glycol, and contaminants, some of which are linked to hormone disruption. Now, if you use these personal items, consider cleaner, chemical-free brands like Nature Care. It's sold at health food stores nationwide.
So many people call us, write us, and ask us, please, please, please help me with sleep. So here are my 3 favorite sleep strategies. Number 1, magnesium. And not just the oral magnesium. Magnesium orally is great, but it can be a little bit, well, you might have to run to the bathroom. Magnesium oil gets into the body a lot easier, and there's so many benefits to it, but sleep is my favorite. Number 2, exercise. If you're not exercising, it is so hard to wind down at the end of the day. Maybe some good stretches would help. Anything at all to loosen up the muscles and just relax. And number 3, if you have to do it occasionally, melatonin, for me it's not an every time thing because it's a hormone, but when you need it, melatonin can be a lifesaver.
I call her many things. She is our resident nutritionist, resident pro, resident cook. Kristen Kahns is here with us today. Queso.
Yes.
I don't even know what queso is. Do you? What's in regular queso?
It's cheese and it's yummy. It's in Mexican foods, dips. It's my favorite.
But you said there are a lot of mystery ingredients.
There are a lot of mystery, yes. There are
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
that
mystery
anybody
ingredients.
knows. And it's certainly not phase 1. Why do we eat phase 1? We eat phase 1 because fungi can parasitize the human body, get in your tummy and your skin, etc., and it needs to be starved. And so we now know what foods these fungal parasites need to be fed. A lot of alcohol, a lot of sugar, a lot of wheat, a lot of corn, a lot of peanuts, etc. And we don't eat that way. So phase 1 cooking. Queso, I think of queso around dips. You know, you get together with friends, sports events and so forth, and everybody has these things you pop in the microwave.
Yes.
This is much, much different because this is going to be a phase 1 queso dip with phase 2 dippers. Okay,
Yes.
let's start at the beginning.
Unless you use the vegetables.
And then it would be
it's
phase 1. Right.
So, okay, so we're going to actually make this.
Okay.
You want to, check all your ingredient labels. The chicken broth, I've changed brands a lot because the ingredients change. They've got yeast, they've got sugar, they've got crazy stuff in it. So I use a half a cup of organic chicken broth.
Okay.
So I'm going to pour that in here.
There you go.
All right. And then this is cream cheese, and you don't want to be eating cream cheese all the time. This is a comfort food. It is something that you have on occasion. It's not like a phase 1 staple that you're eating all the time. Yeah. And this does have live active cultures in it, so I do like this brand. So I'm going to stick the cream cheese in here, and I'm going to get a little messy with my hands and just put it on in there. This is 8 ounces of cream cheese. Okay. And hopefully you won't be eating all this dip by yourself.
That's interesting how you make this, because most people just know you pour it into a bowl and then put it in a microwave and that's it.
Right.
So you're learning, from really the boss here, how to make a good, healthy queso.
Yes, and it's so, as you'll see, it's so easy. Okay, and then a half a cup of cashews.
Ooh,
so
I
we're going
like
to put
that.
the cashews in there. And then we're going to blend this up, and then we're going to add the last few ingredients. Good. So it's going to be a little loud. All right. Okay, that's probably good.
Okay.
Okay, I'm actually going to add a little more of the broth in here just to...
Okay, so you blended that for a minute or two.
So you blend it, you really want to use like a high power blender. Okay. A food processor does work, but it's kind of, doesn't get the cashews as mixed up as they should.
And you don't want to be chewing your queso. Nobody chews their queso.
No,
right?
you want it to be nice and velvety
right.
and creamy. Okay, so then I use some salsa. You don't want it to have the regular vinegar. You want apple cider vinegar. So this is a good brand of apple cider vinegar.
How much of that do you put in?
A half a cup.
Okay.
This.
By the way, the recipe will be on the website for those of you who love queso. If you're sick, you're following the phase 1 and you're getting better, this is a treat on occasion. It's not an everyday food.
I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And you know it's real sea salt if it has the brown little flecks and specks in it, which is the real sea salt. Whoa! I'm making a mess.
I should be helping, I'm sorry.
No. And then just take a bunch of cilantro. I do a handful of cilantro and stick that in. You can do as much or as little as you want. Now the cilantro you want to do at the very end, because if you blend it up all together, then it turns green and it kind of looks gross. But it still tastes delicious.
So blend it for another minute or so.
Yeah, not even, just maybe like 10 seconds.
Okay.
And that is it. And that's your queso.
So many of you would like to cut up some vegetables, something of that sort, carrots, celery sticks, and have it that way if you're following the phase 1 diet. Others of you, oh, that looks so good. It looks like this one. Others will want to use things like this. This is Benito's. So many of you like this. This is phase 2 because it's bean and has some rice in it also. But this is what you end up with. You can heat it up in your oven for a period of time. And then, have you had it?
I have. It's my favorite. I've been kind of snacking on it. Yeah, you can heat it up in your oven or on the stovetop. You just want to make sure that you stir it a lot. You like it?
It tastes like football season.
It does.
That is delicious. Thank you very much.
I'm a woman that has seizures, and when we moved down here to the Ozarks, I got to discover Know the Cause show, and he said, don't take medicine unless it filled the problem. And the more medicine I took, the more seizures I had. One day I had a seizure while cooking, and I burnt my hand, a 3rd-degree burn, and I went to the doctor, and they said I had going to do surgery, but they sent me out to get my own antioxidants. And I thought, wait a minute, aren't you people supposed to do that? So as I listened more to your show, I ended up taking the olive leaf extract, your grapeseed extract, and the probiotics, and I never did surgery. It got better and better and better. And it was fantastic. That's my story on Know the Cause. It's been a blessing of a blessing. You guys keep it up.
Wow, thank you, Kristen. I talked earlier about the foods that you crave when you have a fungal condition, typically. And know that there are 300 pages in this book, right? Cooking Your Way to Good Health. Denny and I put that together a couple of years ago. 300 pages of good foods that effectively starve this fungus. Thank you so much, Frank Jordan, for opening our eyes. This show will never tell you to take or not to take a flu shot, but just be a prudent consumer. Finally, go to the website, free download 4 diseases that doctors may miss that are due to fungus. God bless you, folks. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.